Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoble, and you were on the lifeboat. Good to see you, monk. Monk. So I'm going live. No one knew I was going to. So Dragon, good to see you. Happy that you're here. So yesterday we did a live feed last night. Talked about some prison stuff, answered some questions, and I know that there were a couple of people that aren't fond of the fact that I do prison shows. I'll tell you what, people. See if I can explain this one real quick so we can get on to what I do. My job is to make the lifeboat get bigger and then talk to as many people as I can on the lifeboat about getting sober, getting into the system that we do, getting their 5 and all of that. That's my job. I'm going to continue to do it. I'm never going to say sorry for it, but I'm going to continue to do it. So today we're talking about connection. We have a theory here, and it's not unique to the lifeboat by any stretch. In fact, I stole it. I stole it from people considerably smarter than me. The concept being that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. This is a concept that's hard for some people to wrap their dome around, but the opposite, you know what? Amber says, you're up early. I'll tell you what, Amber, believe it or not, when I'm not on vacation, we do 5 a.m. and 5 p.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But I have a friend in from, my best friend is in from Australia. Alan Ballantyne, you guys probably saw him in the videos that I shot in California. Great dude. And I have been vacationing in theory. Unfortunately, one of my co-hosts here on the lifeboat got badly injured right as I went on vacation. And it would have meant not doing boat. And I don't want to leave the boat down for the amount of time that I would have had to leave it down for. It just would have been... it wouldn't have been good. We want to make sure that the support group is here at all times for all people. So we needed to fire it back up. The vacation would have been nice, but you know what? We'll get it when we hit 20,000, because apparently we're not going to get it while we're hitting 10,000 people. Can you guys imagine that? We're at 9,100 and some change. We have put in, 3,000 people. Good to see you, Sydney, Australia. I've been there back in the day, but when I was still able to get in there. Their computer system's gotten pretty good. Felons no longer get in there very easily. But Tina, good to see you. Fellow lifers, boy, oh boy, right? Every single one of us. So the opposite of addiction. If you say, what's the opposite of addiction? The average person says, well, obviously, the opposite of addiction is to be sober, right? Sobriety, it's clean. It's not doing dope. And all of those things are super important, but the way that they happen, the opposite of addiction is connection. When we are in the life, I was a heroin addict and a bank robber. If you know my story, my drug addiction got to the point where I had a $600 a day habit, and I went from having very legitimate jobs that made really, really good money. I worked as a public speaker for a long time. A lot of people have a lot of fun with the stuff that I did with infomercials. That I was a scam artist. Infomercials that I did are 100% legal. Is what I did ethical? Hell no, it isn't. I never said it was. I came on and told people about it. That's how they found the infomercials. That's how they went and knew to look for them. I scammed people. I did everything I could do to get money. And I had a $600 a day habit, and that eventually led to robbing banks. I mean, it didn't jump from business to banks. I started robbing other things and realized that everything I stole, I had to sell. And I spent half of my waking hours trying to sell something that was worth $1,000 for 200. So I just started stealing money because it cut out the middleman. I didn't need a fence. So I became a bank robber. I'm not proud of it. But I went to prison. I did my time. And I am out. Right. Funny that you guys started as a prison colony. I honestly said the same thing. I said, of all of the countries in the world to not allow me in. And I'll tell you what, with all due respect to every country that doesn't allow in felons, you're all hypocrite bastards anyway. I worked in Canada. Canada does not allow felons in there. And I worked in Canada, and they had no problem at all with me flying back and forth because I was paying taxes in their country. I did a deal in Canada. Got to meet a lot of famous people. It was a very, very cool deal. We were feeding meals to homeless kids, and it was a very, very cool deal. I worked with a guy whose name I won't mention because then they'll say he's a scam artist. I worked with a lot of lowlifes, but we did a lot of really cool things. I'm an open book. So one of the things that this connection thing when I was in life and I was doing heroin, I could be in a room shooting dope with 45 people, and I'm alone. There was nobody in my life that I had any connection to at any level. The only kind of connections I had were with people who you get in a car, you drive, you wait in a parking lot for somebody to come and deliver dope, and then you drive off. And over the course of 30 years, I literally came up with one friend who I am still friends with to this day. We're a little shaky right now over some communication issues, but I love the guy. And he got out. He got sober. But there are no connections. You don't, because the only rallying point you have is your addiction. So you say, well, I'm connected to my wife. No, you're not. If you're in the life and you're using and you're getting loaded every single day, I don't care if you're laying down next to a person at night, you're not connected to them. Because the drug or the booze or whatever it is drives a wedge between you and the person that you love. You cannot be connected to somebody if you're under the influence 24/7. It kills connection. It's what it does. It kills connection and it isolates. We take stuff, we pull it inside, we don't share it with anybody. And the reason that if you go back to the 1930s in the United States of America, worldwide, anywhere you went, in America, the physician's desk reference, the PDR, used to, they had a section on alcoholism. And what it said was, keep the alcoholic away from machinery. Don't let the person drive because there's nothing we can do to treat this person. They're going to drink themselves to death or they're not, but there's nothing that can be done to intervene on behalf of the addict. That was the medical, that is the physician's desk reference. That is the medical opinion on addiction in the 1930s. And it wasn't cured by scientists and it wasn't cured by two individuals got together and one said, I won't let you drink tomorrow if you don't let me drink tomorrow. The thought being, I can't stop myself from drinking. Maybe I can stop you from drinking. And I was not worth a fart at stopping myself from doing heroin for 30 years. Now I've got 8 years sobriety, and a great deal of what I do to stay sober is based on me trying to help other people get sober. It is a very large part of my sobriety. I have built it that way. Everybody builds their sobriety different, but what I do right here, right now is a huge part of my sobriety. Coming here every day and opening up and talking about who I am and what addiction does, what drugs does, how it tears apart lives. This is the backbone of my sobriety. It's what I do. So fulfillment of human needs. I did this into 5 bullet points like I used to do when I spoke, because this, to me, this is the most important thing that we talk about. The rest of it is window dressing. If you are connecting with people, if you are getting yourself put together to where, I don't know what I just highlighted. There we go. If you're connecting with people, then there's an excellent chance you're moving in the right direction. If you're starting to connect with people, especially individuals who don't have drug habits, you hear cliches used all the time in rehabilitation. And one of them is, you got to change people, places, and things, right? You got to change your people, places, and things. If you're going back to the same bar you go to 7 nights a week for the last 4 years, and you're just going to throw darts, right? You're not going to drink. You're just going to go hang out with the homies. You're going to go down and throw darts. I freaking promise you, it isn't going to last a week. You can't go to the same places, do the same things, and think you're going to get different results, right? We all know what that is. It's very famously been stated that doing the same thing over and over again, but thinking you're going to get a different result is the definition of insanity. I don't know if it's the definition of insanity. I know it's the definition of addiction. I know that as addicts, we do this constantly. We come up with new game plans. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drink, but I'm not going to drink any day of the week but Friday and Saturday, right? Or Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. We put little things in place that is going to keep us from doing too much, right? I'm not kidding you. I got to a point once in my life where I got clean, and I decided, how stupid this is, but I decided that I was going to do dope again, but I didn't want to get a habit, right? And my brother Johnny can carve anything. He has a skill you would not believe. On a show sometime, I'll bring out some of the things that Johnny's carved. He can carve stone. He can carve anything. He's incredible. So I had him carve me these little rocks, and it was a 1, a 2, and a 3. And on 1 and 2, I could do dope. But on day number 3, if I did it, I'd be addicted. With my habit, 3 days is all it takes. So I would do dope Monday and Tuesday. And on the 3rd, I would carry this rock in my pocket. Because as a drug user, it's really easy to go, what day am I on? And the next thing you know, you're addicted. Anik Alexander, good to see you, Anik. I hope you're doing well. So I would carry these things in my pocket. I was going to chip. I was going to get a chip habit, right? And of course, this obviously doesn't work. The whole chipping concept, the running joke among a lot of heroin addicts was the reason they call it chipping is because only one person ever did it successfully, and his name was Chip. You cannot think that you're going to put things in place that are going to keep you sober, because the only thing that's going to keep you sober is if you change the people, the places, and the things that you do. Does that mean you cannot talk to anybody ever again if they do dope or if they drink? Of course not. Of course not. I got a ton of friends that still use. I do. A ton of them. There's a ton of people on the boat that still use. It's not an issue for me. I would not have them stay at my house. I wouldn't. If you're going to pull out, if you need to pull out works every couple of, every 6 to 8 hours to fix, I can't watch that. I can't have that in my house. I don't want that to be a part of my life. Alan Ballantyne, he's going, I didn't know he woke up. He was a couple of rooms over. I decided this morning that I was going to go live, people, because of last night's live feed. Truthfully, that one broke my heart. It really did. I don't want the people on the boat to think that that in any way, shape, or form that I am abandoning the boat. I heard a lot of really crappy things, man. I told everybody I was taking a 2-week vacation. Couldn't take a 2-week vacation because of injuries to Heather. It's not Heather's fault. And if the exact same situation was the inverse, and Heather was taking a vacation and I face planted and ended up in a hospital, I assure you, Heather would be doing work on her vacation, because we don't let the boat go down. Truthfully, if you're new to the lifeboat, I do a 5 and a 5, and I do it 365 days a year if I'm not on vacation. And the people on the boat will tell you, if someone else is supposed to do it and they can't get on, I'll get on and I'll do it 20 minutes later. We do these meetings because they help people stay sober. And the key is this, people. The key is not that Tommy Scoville can get anybody sober, right? That doesn't work that way. I can, however, put together a place where a bunch of addicts can come together and meet one another. Now you've got people who are all trying to remain sober. This is a very different group of people than what we're used to. And when you start to surround yourself with individuals who are moving in the right direction, unique things happen. Really unique things happen. We have a very different system here. We do not do 12 steps, right? We don't work through 12. And I don't badmouth them, because the two cats that invented sobriety did it through the 12 steps. And we stand on their backs. They're giants. However, the world has changed dramatically. Technology has changed dramatically. And I'll tell you something, standing up in a room full of people that you've never been in to say, hi, I'm Tommy, I'm addicted to heroin, is a difficult thing to do for a public speaker, right? For a guy that's got no problem jumping up in front of a room full of people, it's a hard thing to do, to stand up in a sobriety meeting and say, my name is Tommy, I'm addicted to heroin. It's not easy, and it's not fun. And for that reason, many disappear. They don't do it. God forbid you show up at one of those meetings and you smell like you've had one. They don't want you there. Can you imagine that? I'm sorry. It's the dumbest friggin' thing I've ever heard in my life. I still struggle to wrap my brain around the fact that that's okay. That's okay. Why are you at a cancer ward? You obviously have cancer. Beat it. We can't have you here, right? You're in an emergency room and you're sick? What are you, stupid? It's the exact same principle, isn't it? You show up at a meeting for sobriety and someone says, I can't have you here. You've been using. Well, of course I've been freaking using. That's why I need a sobriety meeting. At the lifeboat, you can come here wasted. We don't care. As long as you're not disruptive to the group, as long as you're not telling people that getting high is a good thing, we'd love to have you here under the influence. And we've had people who came here every day for 6 or 7 months under the influence, until one day they heard something, not from me, but something in the chat. There's a reason that we don't record videos on the lifeboat, because very often I'm background noise. And what's important is that you all can get together and begin to discuss what's going on. And you'll start to realize that there are certain people in here you kind of click with a little bit more. Then what we do is we assemble those people into a group of 5, right? 5. Now, does everybody get 5? No, because people don't listen to Captain Tommy. You should have 5. But honestly, in this day and age, if you had 2 or 3, you're probably in good shape. Basketball Jones, holy hell, long time no see, man. Good to see you, Basketball Jones. Friend from way back in the day. Good to see you, brother. Basketball Jones stuck with us during some ugly times when people were not very nice to Captain Tommy. Basketball Jones was a very solid cat that rode with us. Really appreciate it. Ben Turner, good to see you. So we get our 5. And what's the purpose of that? Well, the purpose of that is all I'm going to do is teach you tricks on how to get by that moment. And I say that moment because if you think that staying sober means you got to concentrate 24 hours a day on not getting high. That only lasts for about a day, people. Really. Then life will start to get back into League of Fire. Good to see you, man. Then things will start falling back into place. You see, this is a very simple concept. This is a ball. It's made of quartz. If I put this in my hand like this, right, nothing else can be there. There's a law in physics, and somebody smarter than me might write it in the comment section. Sometimes that happens. But there is a law. It's somebody's law of physics that says two objects can't occupy the same place at the same time. Makes sense, right? If I want to put this there, I got to move the ball. Your brain is the exact same way. If you have a thought in your head, and that thought is, boy, man, if I don't get some booze, I'm going to die. All you got to do is get a different thought to occupy that spot. You go, it's not that easy. Of course it's not. But we're going to teach you tricks to get by that and get through that 4 or 5 minutes that you need to, so that you can get back onto the smooth sailing until the next wave. And then, so sobriety is just assembling a bag of tricks, having a toolbox full of tools, whatever helps you visualize this. But it is a box of tools that you use on a regular to not use, to not get high, to not drink, to not do whatever it is that you're doing, right? Sometimes those tools don't work. Sometimes you do all the things that Q taught me and that I teach you, and it still doesn't work. And you still cannot get off that thought of, I got to drink, I got to drink. That's when the 5 become a very big deal, right? And in this day and age, we've got text, we've got, we got phone, we got Skype, there's emails, there's a million ways to get a hold of people. With 5, someone will always answer the phone and you call them. And here's the beautiful thing. If you're listening to my voice and you say, I can't be somebody's 5, you know what I mean? I haven't been sober long enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know how to do all of that stuff. You don't need any answers to be somebody's 5. I promise you. I get this crap all the time. Man, I don't have the answers like you got. You don't need answers, man. You don't. You need no answers. You need questions. And they're very easy questions, right? They're very easy questions. The questions go like this. Are you okay, brother? And they say, no, I'm not, man. I'm really thinking about getting loaded. Really? Tell me what's going on. Just questions. They start to tell you and you go, I'm not trying to bum you out. You think drinking's going to make this better? Do you think that'll help? Of course not, right? You ask them questions and they answer them, right? And for all intents and purposes, you became a counselor. You go to a counselor. The running joke is what? They say, well, how does that make you feel? If you feel yourself getting stuck, ask somebody how it makes them feel. You're not charging them $175. We've got, hold on here. T-Gun says, Captain Tommy, been going through a very dark place. Remember CPT Tommy's advice. Make your bed. And from that, carried on. I'm still here. Simple stuff. It works. Thank you, T-Gun. There's a lot of truth to this. One of the things that I beat the ever-loving crap out of on a regular basis is that when you get up in the morning, you make your bed. Seems really simple stuff, doesn't it? Drug addicts don't do it. Alcoholics don't do it. I mean, for the most part, they don't. They get up in the morning, they kick all the sheets to the bottom of the bed. They roll out onto the floor and whatever they slept in, right? We don't, as addicts, we do not get up and make our bed. So as sober people, we do. It is a proclamation to the entire freaking world that this is who I am now. The old guy didn't do that. I call it page 2 versus page 3, Tommy. Because in our system, which is pretty simple, I started out and Q said to me, make a list of all of the reasons that you want to be sober. And it's funny because they tell you in sobriety, you have to do it for you. I couldn't do it for me. I didn't like me. I didn't like me at all. I'll be really honest. I hated me, right? I got to go do this for me. I'm a dirtbag, right? I got no respect for me. Why would I do this for me? But I started making lists of all of the people in this world that I needed to get sober for. The first name on the list, the first thing I put down was my daughter and son. I didn't want them to have a dad in prison who was a junkie. I wanted to be able to get out and have an opportunity to be there for dad. I mean, for them as a dad. Maria, great comment. Maria says, nothing works the same for everyone because no one does whatever for different reasons. It's absolutely a fact. There's no one size fits all in sobriety. There's not. And it's one of the reasons that this one worked for me, right? By the way, if you're doing 12 steps, fan-freaking-tastic, do 12 steps. It works. Great. It does. It works for so many people. It just didn't work for me, right? And the meeting part was the hardest. We have taken the meeting aspect, which is the most solid part of that, and we've eliminated that stigma feeling that you got to stand up and say, hey, how you doing? Right? You can do that here. You can do that here. Maria just left a comment. We just highlighted it. We're talking about it. And guess what? Nobody here sees Maria. Nobody here judges Maria. No group of people have clicked up in the corner, right? So that when you walk in, that was the one that killed me. I remember walking into a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and it felt like walking into prison. You know, there was like 6 or 7 little cliques of groups that were all standing around, and I walked in and I got this. And all the eyes looked up, right? And it was that they're looking me up and down. And honestly, I could tell what every one of them was thinking, or at least I believed they could, and that was just as bad. You know, in my mind, all of them were going, that dude's not sober and he's not going to get sober. He's not going to make it. And nobody came up. Nobody said, hey, how you doing? Welcome. And I didn't make it. I didn't stick around. I had many experiences with many different groups, many negative, not all. Some of them were very positive. But I remember going to a meeting and sitting in there and I'm looking across and this is what I see. I mean, the dude across from me is nodding the hell out while I'm talking to him. The 12 steps, Maria, are a system put together in the last century, early in the last century. It was the first way that people got sober. They did it through a group called Alcoholics Anonymous. And they had a very, very phenomenally advanced concept at the time that addicts coming together and sharing what they're going through would allow people to get sober. What it does is the magic of group is this. If you sit down with your best friend and your best friend is a normie, right? Your best friend doesn't get high. So your best friend sits down and you start to talk to him and you say, all right, so I'm getting high again. I started to get high. And your friend goes, Tommy, you went to prison. You got out of prison and started getting high. Why in God's name would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. And I go, no, well, I know it doesn't make sense, but I couldn't not do it. What do you mean you couldn't? Okay. If I sit down with a group of 5 addicts and I say, so I got out of prison and I got high again, the addicts go, okay. Right? No one is shocked by the fact that you got high. They understand the voice that no one else hears. They understand that calling that we have to overcome. We are not like other people. Do you understand? We're not. We have a disease, and our disease makes us uniquely different. Doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us broken. It sure as hell makes us uniquely different. And for that reason, it requires a different lifestyle. We can't live like other people do. Sponsorship in AA is an avenue for the control of freaks to exercise their mechanisms on newcomers. No thanks. That right there is, I have heard that uttered in 50 or 60 different ways. It's all very similar to what was just said. There's a lot of people who really do believe that. I'm not bad-mouthing the framework of the 12 steps. I'm not even bad-mouthing, but there's human interaction, and there's always going to be problems with human interaction. And face-to-face human interaction is even worse. One of the other complaints that I get about 12-step meetings and things like that, I get primarily from women who say, you walk in the door and every guy in there immediately descends upon you. And it becomes almost a feeding ground for people that are trying to meet women. And good Lord, I mean, that's really probably not the best place for us to be meeting anybody and then thinking about, relationships or whatever. But there's a lot of people who have a lot of complaints. There really are. When I watch this guy nod out across from me, I'm sitting there watching him the entire time. And you start thinking to yourself, why would somebody be here? Like they don't want to be here. It's painfully obvious. Well, in the United States, if you get in trouble with the court system and there is anything in your file that has to do with booze or drugs, you know what I mean? It's you don't have to have a drug charge. Like as a bank robber, they would look at my file and go, you rob banks to get heroin. When he gets out, he has to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Well, I had relapsed twice in the parking lot of an NA meeting. And when I got out this last time, and the probation officer said to me, you need to go to a probation, to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and I want you to do 90 of them in 90 days. I said, I'm not doing it. It was quite a moment. It really was. He just looked at me and went, I'm sorry, what? I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to it. I'm not going to do it. And he said, no, you don't understand. You have to. I said, well, then you can put me back in prison. Because if I go to that meeting, I'm going to get high. And I'll be really honest with you. I'd rather be incarcerated than addicted. may sound crazy to people, but it's the truth. I'd rather be locked up than be free with a drug habit, because with a drug habit, I don't have any control over who I am. I'm a horrific human being when I'm on dope, and I'm a fairly decent guy when I'm not. I actually care about people other than me, and that's a real problem for addicts. And it gets back to the concept of fulfillment of human needs and connection. To satisfy our fundamental human need for social interaction and belonging and emotional support. Addiction completely undermines that to the point where you're not having any connection to any person at any level. Group therapy begins to break that down so that we can actually start talking to one another and sharing with one another about the things in our lives that are making us get high. And when you begin to do this, when you begin to open up, a very unique thing happens, right? It's almost like light, like UV light kills that which drives us to use. Because when you open that stuff up and you let it get out to the world, amazing things happen in the very beginning of the boat, right? And this is the reason that people on the boat get very protective of it. There's a reason people on the boat get bummed out if I start doing things that aren't, in line with what they believe the boat ought to be. The reason is, when we first started the boat, I could work with every single person on it one-on-one. If every person here wanted to work with me, and I could do it, I could have 25 people. It's not easy, but it's doable. It gets harder when you get up into the thousands, and it shouldn't be me anyway, right? The five we should get people who build their fives. Everyone in the chat right now who has a five will tell you it's the greatest thing in the world. For an addict, it's the greatest thing in the world. Having a person where if you're just having one of those days, you can call them and you don't have to spend 30 minutes explaining why it's one of those days. If you say, this is one of those days, the person on the other end of the phone goes, oh yeah, it's one of those days you want to get high. Right? This is one of those days where everything is bothering you. It's one of those, you don't need any of that explained. I understand why there are days where all you can think about is dope. I get that. I'm 8 years sober, and I understand that there are days where it gets in there. And it's, what I do? I call Alan Ballantyne. Actually, to be really honest, I send him a text and say, call me. But I get Alan on the phone and I talk to him one-on-one. And if I can't get Alan, which doesn't happen very often, but if I can't get Alan, I call my brother, right? I call Johnny. And if I can't get Johnny, I go down the list. I can't remember the last time I had to go past the first two, because it's very, very simple to get people to talk to you these days. And I'll tell you something else. When you're in someone's five, like if you call me and I am talking to somebody, I'm not taking the call, right? I don't, because normally if I'm talking to somebody, it's somebody that needs help, right? So I end up if you're in my five, I'll stop a live feed to talk to you. And people have seen it happen. I'll shut down a live feed like that. If you're in my five, I'm going to take the call, right? That's what I do. And it's an amazing feeling as an addict to know that there's somebody out there, that there's five people out there that love you and care about you enough that they'll take that call and they'll put down whatever they're doing and they'll talk to you. And it's funny because in the beginning, these people would call, or they would ask me to call, and I'd reach out to them, and you talk to somebody for 45 minutes. They get on the phone, they say, you know what? I want to get high. And you say, yeah, why don't you tell me what's going on? And they talk for 45 minutes. You don't say a word. You don't say a word. They ask questions and then they answer them themselves. Am I the kind of guy that should do something like that? Of course I'm not. And they just continue to go. And you get to the very end and they go, oh man, Tommy, I can't tell you how much that helped. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, talking to me. And you go, I could have set the phone down and walked outside. You understand what that says, right? It says that having the ability to open up and know that somebody is listening to you is life-changing. It's freaking life-changing. Do you understand? Atypical Paul, be awesome to have five even if you aren't an addict. Well, I got news for you. If you're listening to the sound of my voice and you're not an addict, get your five. It'll be fantastic for you to be in somebody's five. Just be honest with them. Tell them. I've got a ton of people who will say to me, I have family members in my five who aren't addicts. If the person can get by the unexplainable, then that's great. I do really feel that if you got someone in your five and they start admonishing you on bad decisions, then get away from them. Honestly, people, the bad decisions, that is a given. We're drug addicts, right? What we want to talk about is what caused the bad decision, right? What happened that made you drink? Because it was probably the drink that made the bad decisions. What caused you to stick a needle in your arm? Because I don't rob banks if I'm not sticking needles in my arms, right? I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. It really is. But the connection aspect of it can't be overplayed. I promise you that this is the absolute cure. Secure. People say you can't be cured from addiction. I'm cured. Screw it. I don't like it. You don't like it. I get it, but I'm cured. Doesn't mean I can use. It means I will never use. You understand? Being cured of an addiction to heroin doesn't mean you think you can do heroin. That's what makes you a drug addict. Being cured is when you know that there's no chance you could ever do it even once, right? I avoid medical procedures if they require pain meds at the end of them. That I know who I am. I absolutely know who I am. All right, so my second bullet point. Enhanced mental health. Meaningful connections with others can boost mental well-being by providing a sense of purpose and reducing feelings of isolation. Conversely, addiction often exacerbates mental health issues and isolation. And it's the truth. The vast majority of people that I work with who are addicts also have underlying mental issues. All of us, myself included, all of us. We try to self-medicate, right? This is something that should make sense. If you're still using and you're hearing my voice and you're saying, you know what, am I an addict, or am I just a guy that gets high a lot, or a gal that gets high a lot? You know, what's really going on with me? Where do I fall in this? When you start looking at your drug use, the definition of addiction, more often than not, is when people describe people who do something in spite of ridiculously negative consequences, right? If you slam your finger in a car door, you would not immediately say, I think I'll do that again, right? You'd say, there's no way I'm ever doing this. I'm going to have to make sure that I slam doors differently. I'm going to have to, but we will continue. We'll get a DWI and we will continue to drink. And then we get another DWI, or me. I get arrested for stealing to support my habit. People, if you think I got arrested and went to prison, then you haven't caught a lot of my shows. I got arrested, went in and had a judge look at me and say, come on, you're a good guy. You come from a good family. Get out of here and sin no more. And then you come back in and they go, really? I think maybe you have a drug problem, right? Why don't you get some counseling? You come in the third time. If you knew the number of times I got arrested before a judge finally said, there's nothing I can do for you, kid. You're going to prison. You get a lot of chances. You get a ton of chances. But in the face of all of that negativity, you continue to use, right? So for a lot of people, it's a great definition. But for some, they go, well, that's not me. See, Tommy robbed banks. He went to prison. I go to work every single day. So here's my definition. Could you go 7 days without it? Set down your drug of choice. Could you do that for 7 days? Could you walk away and say, for the next 7 days, I'm not doing this? If you can, right? And it is not the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. Maybe you're not addicted. Maybe you're just someone that gets high. It is really rare that I talk to somebody that doesn't know. Really is. You know, people say, well, denial. No. Yeah, you deny yourself getting help. But I knew the 30 years I was on heroin, I knew I was an addict. I just knew there was no chance in hell I had any desire or any ability to try to fix it. I knew that to fix it meant I was going to have to get sick and get really sick. And then I was going to have to look at that underlying issue. Why are you getting high? If you think you're getting high because you like drugs, this is the biggest shocker for every addict alive, is when you find out that that's really not why you're getting high. There's actually something that is making you get high. And I'll tell you something. I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of people, right, that have met me through the lifeboat have, reached out and sent emails and said that moment where you go, holy crap, this is why I get high, right? This is the reason that I do what I do. That moment is the epiphany of that is probably the single greatest moment in the life of an addict. Because once you have that, we were talking the other day about me writing a book, and I said, I'm not smart enough to write a book. You know what I mean? Like, I've got some issues. And somebody left a comment. It was a lovely comment by a lovely person that said, you know what? Get a ghostwriter. Even presidents don't write their own books. And I started thinking about it, and I was getting ready, and I wrote back a response, and I must have rewritten it like 6 times, and I never sent it. Because what it really comes down to is that's my driving force. Like I talked about this. Growing up, I had this feeling that I was not very bright. And it was it was exacerbated by problems that I had in school. I'm really good at communicating, and I'm really bad at math. Like, I'm bad at math in a way that I can't explain to people. I'm learning disabled in math. And at that time, I don't think that the learning disability thing was understood very well. And for me, what it meant was that I really kind of thought I was stupid. And because of how well I communicated, I was surrounded by a bunch of people that said, this guy's not stupid, right? This kid's smart as hell. He's lazy. And the other option was lazy or dumb. So I went with lazy. And as soon as drugs came into the scene, I no longer cared. And the drugs were huge. And I no longer gave a crap that I was dumb. I was convinced I was. And then eventually I realized that I wasn't a stupid person. I just don't learn like other people. And once I figured out how I learned, life really changed. And I started to get smarter, and was able to get a degree and do all that stuff. But I know what my button is, right? When I start feeling that, when I start feeling like computers do it to me, computers will make me feel hellaciously inadequate because I don't know how to do anything on a computer. And I start feeling like that dumb kid again, that's not particularly good at math. When those feelings start happening, what's going on? Well, I'm in a bad way, right? I'm heading in the wrong friggin' direction. So I got to start pulling out tricks from my bag of tricks. And if none of them work, I'll be on the phone with Alan Ballantyne. And there are times I get him on the phone and I don't say to him, hey, here's what's bothering me, because I don't need to. If I talk to the cat for an hour, there's a good chance that everything that was bothering me is going to be so far out of my head by the time I'm done talking to him that we don't even need to necessarily address the issue. Communication does things that you will not believe, but you have to get, you actually have to connect, right? You actually have to connect. Here we go. I got a comment. Hi, everybody. Hi, Tommy. A couple of days ago, you talked to Aaron about how quitting alcohol cold turkey can be bad. This might have happened to my dad. Ended up in cardiology. I'm sorry to hear that, my man. I'm not surprised. I'm sorry to hear it, but I'm not surprised. People, listen up. If you're thinking of quitting alcohol and your habit has been going on for years and it's sizable, let's say you're drinking a half a fifth a day, you can't quit cold turkey. You will go into seizures. You know how you get a hangover? You know what a hangover is? A hangover is acute alcohol withdrawal. How about that? It's alcohol withdrawal. You are honestly, your body is going into full-blown booze withdrawal. Now, if you do that and you give the body no alcohol, if you're far enough along, your body literally will begin to seize up. It's the second leading cause of death in county jails in America. Are people who die from acute alcohol poisoning or alcohol withdrawal, acute alcohol withdrawal, and it can kill you. The delirium tremens, the DTs, can take you off the planet. So if you're planning on quitting alcohol, don't do it cold turkey, please. T-Gun, good to see you. You look great in green. I'll tell you something, people. For the longest time, the memberships on the lifeboat have been to support the lifeboat and not much else. And the reason is, the streaming service we use doesn't allow us to stream live just for members. So I actually have to set it up with a completely different system, which I was able to do once. The point is this. I'm actually bringing someone in who is a professional that is going to show me a couple of different tricks. So we're going to start putting up some members only content. And I know I've said this in the past, and then Heather got injured and some other stuff, but stick around because we've got some pretty wild stuff that's coming up. Also, we're reordering the Systroming since those first two cans were no bueno. May have to fly Alan Ballantyne back from Australia because if he thinks he's not eating the stuff. Was that? I could hear him. He's grunting from the other room. You're eating Systroming. Okay, next. Social accountability. People, this is absolutely huge. I hate it when that happens. Social connections foster a sense of responsibility and accountability to others, making it less likely for individuals to engage in addictive behaviors, which often involve secrecy and withdrawal from social ties. This is obviously a little bit different for people who drink. There are people who drink in bars, and they're out in public, and it's a social part of what they do. That is a thing. And I get that from people who say, no, it's not. I don't isolate at all. The hell you don't. You might drink with 45 guys. I assure you, you isolate. When you walk out of that bar and you go home, the connections in the real world and the connections that we make while boozing. I sat in rooms with guys. I had about a 4 or 5 month run in my life where I spent literally every waking moment with a team of 2 other guys. We were basically a 3-man crime spree. And for almost a half a year, I was with these people 24 hours a day and completely alone. There's no connection. Connection requires honesty. It requires disclosure, opening up, things that as addicts we don't do. And for my particular addiction, I don't know about yours, but for my addiction, Trainee Human, good to see you, man. The merch store is being designed as we speak. Spanx Calhoun has actually done a ton on that. He's been working with it. Yeah, the merch store is coming up soon, and we're actually going to have, there are 4, I'm pretty sure there are 4 different designs that'll be out all at once. So, okay, I can understand that. Wait a second. Rick Smith says, okay, I can understand that. Oh, I got you. That wasn't for me. I don't know about your drug, but mine was heroin. And when you're doing heroin, first of all, it's a dirty addiction, right? I mean, I think we all know that. If somebody pulls out a joint and smokes it in front of you, you're not disgusted. But if somebody pulls out a needle to fix, it's a very difficult thing. No one wants to watch that, right? It's just, and as an addict, I become so addicted to it that it means nothing. But to people who haven't watched it, it is really, really ugly. Sorry. And it required that my life was based on lies. Hey, Tommy, where are you going? I can't answer that question. Right? Where am I going? I'm going to steal, or I'm going to buy dope, right? I can't tell anybody that. So I have to come up with a lie. And it was like that in everything I did. If I got up to leave the room, I wasn't doing what anyone thought I was doing. I got up to leave the room. I had my works in my pocket. I was probably going into another room to do more dope. Like every single thing that I did in my life had to be hid and it had to be lied about. And then as people started to realize that I was really bad off, there was a hell of a lot of people that would call you on it. And they would come up and say, hey, you know what? I know you're using again. And what's the first thing we do? This is the denial. You know, I sat there and said to people, I don't have a problem, but trust and believe I knew I did. You know, I was doing $600 to $700 a day, every day, day in, day out, day in, day out. And that's not, I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. If you're not familiar with heroin, if you think I was the guy in the movies, if you think I was, you know, comfortably nodded out in a chair, that didn't happen. The average person that knew me had no idea I was on heroin until they saw me sober. Nobody ever knew. The only way you would know is if you saw me when I wasn't on heroin. And then it was very, very obvious. But when I was on it, you'd have no idea. You know, I was able to work. I didn't stop working because I couldn't work. I stopped working because people found out I was a drug addict and I got blackballed. In fact, I got caught injecting in the green room right before going on stage and I got blackballed. I know a former police officer. Let me see if I can get this. I know a former policeman who became alcoholic because drinking was important to be a part of collective at work, especially in the 90s. Then being a policeman in Russia was really depressive. I believe that. And you know what? It is if I'm not mistaken, I wish Johnny was here because he is just a master on quoting things like this. It's incredible. But if I'm not mistaken, that is the second most abusive occupation in our country for alcohol. I believe number 1 is dentist and number 2 is police officer, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody will probably look it up, though. If I'm wrong, I'll know. My best friend is a dope addict. He was on 30 days with Morgan Sherlock at Henrico Jail years ago. I'll be damned, Basketball Jones. I don't type well either. It's all right. Sadly, he's still struggling. You know what, Basketball Jones? People who are addicted to opiates, the numbers, the success rate's not great. If he's been using that long, his only hope at this point is probably medical assisted treatment, and it is a miracle. It saved my life. So MAT is probably the best hope. If he's willing to talk to somebody about it, man, I'd be happy to talk to him. You know, if you want to send him a link and just say, hey, this dude to talk to you, I'd be more than happy to reach out to him. It's an ugly, ugly addiction. Positive coping mechanisms. Number 4, healthy connections provide individuals with constructive ways to cope with stress and life's challenges, reducing the likelihood of turning to addictive substances or behaviors as a coping mechanism. This is huge. You understand? As addicts, addiction is the attempt to get through life and have it make sense. As addicts, life does not make sense. Well, how does that manifest? It manifests us not feeling comfortable in our own skin. This is heart-wrenching. Diana M. says, spent most of my teen years talking to my dad through the bathroom door. He spent his days shooting up in a bathroom. You end up thinking this is acceptable. Diana, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am that you went through that. It's and the fact that you say you come to think that that's normal, I think that's probably the scariest part of everything that you just said. That, and I know my son never knew, but I talked to my son through doors. I did it. He didn't know what I was doing on the other side of the door, but I did it. And it's and you know what? I'm glad that you brought it up today. I really am. I don't wallow in self-pity and I don't do any of that, but every once in a while it's really good to get a good dose of reality and remember where you were, right? It's one of the reasons the lifeboat is so important to me, is that I will never forget where I was, how far I fell, and how far I've climbed. I'll be really honest with you. I'm damn proud of where I am today. Damn proud of it. I really am. And you all should be. Anybody that... Tampa B! My favorite people. Good to see you, Tampa B. I was talking about you yesterday. How about that? I was talking about you yesterday because something was said in the chat, and Alan Valentine said, "Oh, I know that guy." I said, "That's not a guy. The name is deceptive, but that's not a guy." I am very sorry, Diana. It's so fantastic that you're breaking the cycle of addiction, because it does go from generation to generation to generation. And I've done shows on the effects that one sober person has on the planet. One sober person. And I don't care what they do with their sobriety. I don't care if they decide to start a YouTube channel and help people get sober, or if they just no longer drink or do drugs. Whatever that sobriety is, it absolutely will change the entire world. It really will. It only takes one sober person, and the sphere of influence that person touches, their children will never be the same. Their children's children will be different because you stop drinking and drugging. No matter how far in you are, no matter how long you've been using, you can change the entire world the day you quit. I promise you. It will change the lives of all of the people that you love. It's the most beautiful thing that you can do. Diana M., I want to tell you something. This is so important to me, and I don't know why it is, but this is really important to me. Diana M. says, my dad said to me once, to save me, he would rip his heart out, but he couldn't put it down to save me. He meant it, and he would have ripped his heart out for you. He would have. I don't want you to confuse the two. And I don't want you to think that the reason that he didn't put it down is because he didn't love you enough, because that's horseshit. I'm sorry. It is. It's got one thing has nothing to do with the other. And this is such a hard thing. It is. But the fact that he loved you enough to die for you, but not enough to, it had nothing to do with love, Diana. We don't continue to use because we don't love enough. I promise you. If it was about love, I wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a lifeboat. Everybody here loves their families. It's not it. It's a disease. It's like telling a diabetic, you don't love me enough to process sugar. You don't love me enough to not need insulin. And I'm not busting on you because I understand the difference. I do. I'm intimately involved in it. I've been on every side of this equation. I just want you to know that it wasn't about love. Your dad loved you. It's just it's a disease, and it's a disease that manifests itself in a way that, especially that, needle addiction is a very, very difficult thing to break. And my heart bleeds for you, hon, but he loved you. It wasn't about love. I promise it wasn't. And it's important that you know that. It really is. It was not about love. I promise you, your dad loved you. It was about the fact that he had a disease that sadly we didn't know a whole lot about. And there wasn't a whole lot of people that were doing a decent job. Oh my God. CK says, my father was my first drug supplier. CK, the fact that you're here is amazing. It really is. If your dad was your first drug supplier, the fact that you're here is amazing. God bless you. God bless you. It's amazing. It really is. Man, that's hard. Boy, is that hard. Okay. Long-term satisfaction. Pay attention, people. This one's my favorite. Connection offers long-term fulfillment and happiness, whereas addiction tends to provide short-lived pleasure followed by negative consequences, perpetuating a cycle of seeking fleeting satisfaction. This, to me, is the best. It's the best part of connection, all of it. When you begin to connect with people in a real way, people who are sober, what begins to happen is, as opposed to getting our happiness in 3-hour batches, followed by a crash and guilt and all of the things that we go through in the cycle of addiction, when you begin to actually connect with people and there's a real connection, what happens instead is we get on these very, very long, sustained climbs of happiness. Do they last forever? No. Oh my God, CK. CK says, I was 10 when your father started supplying you with dope. You were 10. That's it's unbelievable. Fleeting satisfaction is so much easier, says Tampa B Man. You're right. There's no question. It is. It is absolutely easier. And you know what? If you want the easiest fleeting satisfaction is heroin. You don't have to drink and wait 15, 20 minutes for that stuff to hit you. When that plunger hits the bottom of the syringe, you are completely short-term bliss. However, every time you do it, you got to take like a 2-cent deposit and drop it in. Just like 2 cents. Every single time you do it, you throw another 2 cents into the deposit. And sadly, those 2 cents come out of your soul. It's the hardest part to get back. You know, it's the hardest part to get back. It's to rebuild the part of you that people can't see is the most difficult part. And you know what? The connection thing is, it has no downside, right? There's no hangover. There's no withdrawal. There's no any of those things. It's and the best part, honestly, the best part is that you start out, right? If you do this and you do it right and you get into this lifestyle and you get into this community and you get into what we do. I started out at the foot of Q, right? Listening to him teach me a better way and a way that I could actually live. And he knew I was getting out of prison and he knew he wasn't. Can you imagine sitting down and trying to help somebody so that they could go and be free while you stayed behind? So it's pretty heavy, right? But then what happens is I become the Q, right? And the same thing happens on the boat. I know people who are working with 5 and 6 people, and it is a very huge part of their life. You begin to get that short-term blast high that you want. You will get every time that phone rings and somebody asks you for help and you help them. It's why people volunteer at soup kitchens. It's why people volunteer anywhere, because you get that rush of a kind of feeling that they don't package any other way. I've done everything you could put in a vein up your nose, any way you could do it. Nothing feels better than helping somebody. It's a fact. And there's absolute medical science out the wazoo to back it up. Nothing creates more feel-good chemicals in your brain than serving others. Start to get sober, start helping other people get sober, and watch your life change. Watch it take on meaning. If you had told me 10 years ago that this is where I would be today at 5 o'clock in the morning, you just don't know what the future holds if you're willing to stick your toe in. Okay, let's see here. I am addicted to Lyrica, which is pregabalin, and buprenorphine. I know buprenorphine may sound weird because it it is used in opioid replacement therapy, but here in Finland, it is the #1 abused opioid. You're addicted to Suboxone. Are you doing it in strips or are you doing it in pills? And how are you getting the Suboxone into your body? Are you sniffing it, shooting it? How are you doing it? Putting it under your tongue? Pregabalin, which is Lyrica, you put weight on with it really, really badly. It leads to, for a lot of people, it leads to unbelievable weight gain. I have done Lyrica. Lyrica is probably closest to Neurontin for those of you who are on gabapentin. It's very, very similar to gabapentin and what it does in the body and how you feel it, how long it takes to take effect. It's just almost like a better version, a stronger version of gabapentin, but it does the same thing. It's for nerve pain. But the buprenorphine thing, I kind of find fascinating. They abused it in prison too. It was something that was abused a lot in prison. The only way you can abuse it is if you were never addicted to heroin first. At the moment, I'm lowering my doses slowly so I can continue working. I want to get totally sober. Good. Good stuff. We rise by lifting others. Ben Turner, lovely. People suck, no question. Giving feels better than taking for sure. Yes, it does. I snort the pills. Okay, so you're snorting them. Hey, Tommy, it's midnight here. Glad you stayed isolated for a long time. Change that today. I made connections. Do you see that? Well, you just made some more. Suboxone definitely helped me sober up too. You know what? Charlotte says gabapentin is not a nice medication. I disagree with you, and I know people give me crap about this all the time. I think gabapentin is a fantastic medication. I really do. I think it's awesome for what it is used for, and if it's used correctly, it's a great medication. If you're not using it correctly, it's not. Yeah, how much are you taking daily? Nitkus. How much are we looking at? How much are you snorting? I assume you got 8 milligram pills. How many of those are you doing in a day? Crazy Cat. Hey, good to see you. Anik, you lost your whole 5. Well, then we need to get some more, don't we? Did you see that? Everybody looks like Kathy may be looking for some 5. Everybody get that? No one is going to tell you how horrible you are, Rose. You're not horrible. Knock that off. No, Atypical Paul. I have never heard of the people in Okinawa that have their 5, but I love that. That's so cool. You're taking 3 milligrams at the moment. You were taking 8 milligrams a day. Okay, good. Nitkus, here's the deal. The good news is, hold on one second. All right. The good news is this. You're on the only drug on the planet that you can step down off of really easily, right? Other opiates you can't do this with. It is very, very, it is, and I'm not, it is easy compared to any other. I know it's going to be hard, but compared to any other opiate on the planet, it is the easiest one in the world to get off because you can continue to lower the dose. My advice would be this: cut it in half. So go from 3 to 1.5, go from 1.5 to 0.75. And you just cut them into powdered piles, right? You're going to chop up the whole pill, put it into powdered piles, and then cut them in half and keep cutting them in half and cutting them in half. But the key to it is you do it longer than shorter. So when you go from a 3 to 1.5, stay there for a week to 10 days before you drop again. And if you do it that way, your body adjusts to the lower level each time before. Stop that. Sorry. Thank you, Russ. I appreciate that, man. I really do. And thanks for coming on as well. Got so much positive feedback from the show I had with you. We're definitely we'll be doing more down the road. For all of you who have emailed me about that, I promise you we will see more Russ on the lifeboat. So, and get Russ getting his own channel up and running would just be fantastic. There have been people that have been asking me, and I'm sure it's in the future. I'm sure it is in the future. So, Nitkiss, please, you can do this, my friend. And if you find yourself stumbling, or you find that this is hard, reach out. You can reach me at sober@myyahoo.com. Diana M says, that's my point. My dad was a good man. He had a disease. I hope his story helps others. That way he lives on. Diana M, he is living on through you. I promise you. And I guarantee you he was a good man. You know what? I hope everybody realizes that one thing has nothing to do with the other. You understand? There are fantastic people who are addicted to drugs. There are jackasses who are addicted to drugs. And there are everything in between, right? I have a lot of love for all of the people here. I think some of the best people I've ever met have found their way to the lifeboat. Squirrel just jumped early. I know. She was here the entire time and she bailed at the last second. Yes, gabapentin will help sleep. Absolutely will. It does have that effect on a lot of people. Thank you so much, everybody that got up with me early this morning to be here. This is the normal routine. We do a 5 a.m. normally 365 days a year. We do a 5 p.m. So we will be getting back to the normal schedule. And this is the kind of programming we do here on the boat. So good to see so many of you. I love you, and we'll see you on the boat. Between now and the next time I see you, reach out and try to save somebody. God bless.